Welcome back to the Rustle Podcast today. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, His Excellency Mr. Joe Ribeiro, the Director of Portugal. He is not just a diplomat, but someone who has been building bridges between the countries, cultures, and the people through his incredible journey in diplomacy. In this conversation, we'll get to know more about his experiences, Portugal's rich history, and a modern outlook, and how the ties between the Portugal and India are growing stronger every day. We're really excited to hear his stories, perspectives, and insights that could go beyond politics and touch on the culture, collaboration, and connections. So, thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. We are happy to
Thank you,
have you on
thank
this
you, thank you,
platform. Yeah,
thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for your invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. In
it's a
fact, it
pleasure
is a
too,
real
sir.
pleasure.
All right. So now we'll be starting with the interview. So first thing, Mr. Joe, could you share us a bit about your journey from being a lecturer to the serving as a director at the Embassy of Portugal?
Yes, my background as a background, I have a graduation in Portuguese literature and culture, and at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. And I have also an MA made in comparative literature, and that's my field. My field is my field of academic interest is comparative literature, especially literature from the 19th century and 20th century, and cinema. So those are my interests. I started as a professor of literature. I started giving classes as a professor in Brazil.
Okay.
Uh, it was some time ago, and I was there replacing a professor that was ill at the time. And so I was there teaching Portuguese literature and Brazilian literature. That was my beginnings. After that, I went to France, where I was a lecturer. So it was my first time uh, teaching Portuguese language. That was something new at the time for me. And so I found out with the first experience, I found out that I really enjoy being a professor. I enjoy being in a class where I can talk and where I can discuss things that are very dear to me. That's a fundamental discovery that I had in Brazil. In France, I discovered that I enjoyed teaching my own language and culture to foreigners, to people that don't have any kind of connection or direct connection with Portugal or with the Portuguese language. I find that very exciting, to be able to present my language, to present my culture in a safe space, in a space where people won't be judgmental, and I think that the classroom is a safe space for that. And so I enjoyed it really. I enjoy it very much in France during that year that I was in Strasbourg. After that, I had some. I was doing research. But I was also giving small courses in Stockholm and in Berkeley in the United States, in Stockholm in Sweden, and in Berkeley in the United States. And later on, I went to Galicia, to in Spain, and that's when in Galicia I was also, besides being a professor at the University of Santiago de Compostela, a professor of Portuguese language and Portuguese literature and Portuguese culture. I was also, for the first time, a director of a cultural center in Vigo.
Yeah.
So that's when I started this thing, this. I started programming and thinking of how can I promote Portuguese culture to the broader audience, not just to the university audience, but to the broader audience. And I found out in Galicia, in Spain, that this was really nice also. I found out that that I really enjoyed this, because in Galicia I was not in a center, in a
Okay.
cold, I mean, I wasn't in a capital, I wasn't in Madrid.
Yeah.
I was very far away from Madrid, and I was very far away from Lisbon as well.
Right.
And so I had enough space to try new things, to make experiments.
Right.
And I did quite a few, especially I remember that I helped creating a new theatrical group in Galicia that still exists today. That it's an amateur theatrical group of students that learn Portuguese, but they are from Galicia. And that's something that is still going on today, so many years later. This was like 15 years or so.
Excellent.
After Galicia, I went to Buenos Aires. I went to Argentina. And in Argentina, I worked for the first time inside of an embassy because I'm a professor, as you can see.
Right.
I
Right.
work with diplomats and I work in diplomatic culture, cultural diplomacy. That's what I meant. I work in cultural diplomacy, but I'm not a diplomat myself. But I work with, they are all my colleagues and we work together. But my background is being a teacher. I'm a professor that went a little bit
Right.
outside what was planned. And so in Argentina, I started working inside of an embassy. It was my first it was the first time that I was doing that. And here in India, I'm doing that also. I'm working in a cultural center that is in the ground floor of the embassy of Portugal.
Yes.
And so this is my this is this was my path to get here. So here I still work with the embassy, very closely with the embassy, and I work as a director of a cultural center, and it's very exciting, of course. I really, besides being a professor at Delhi University, I still am a professor there. I teach Portuguese language mainly. That's what I've been teaching. So this is what drove me here. That this is my it is not a straight path, but it's an exciting one. It's full of new discoveries and new ways to look at things.
You basically have a very long journey and different countries, and then that it's
Yes.
obviously it's quite interesting and happening for you. So that's excellent. So
Okay.
excellent. Love to know that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah. What first sparked your passion for the Portuguese language and culture?
What? Excuse me, I couldn't.
Okay. What first sparked your passion for the Portuguese language and cultures?
That's a difficult question, but I think, of course, I studied that in the university. So I had when I was a child, I've been surrounded by books ever since I was a child. I really enjoy reading books ever since I was very young, and that's something that differentiated me from my siblings. My siblings they are all engineers and they are in exact sciences, all of them. And so I was the only one that cared about books.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. I think that's something that was born that came with me. That's something that is in my DNA. I don't know. So I was always looking for books and for libraries and reading as much as I could ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so I got in touch with some writers, some Portuguese writers
Okay.
that were very impactful in my life. Some Portuguese writers, like Sofia de Melbreiner. Sofia de Melbreiner was a huge influence in my life. I still remember very vividly when she died. I even had a dream about it that day. Imagine. It was so impactful that I even dreamt about her.
Yeah.
And I also Essed Queiroz, a classic author that I remember reading very early in my life. So I always enjoyed books and I enjoyed reading. That's something very that I cannot fully explain,
Yeah, I
something that
completely.
has to do with me. But later, and because of that, I went to the university to study more about Portuguese literature and culture. And I think that so I don't so far I think the sparkle so far came with me. It's something that was there somehow. But I think that I fell in love with what I do, that is
Okay.
presenting the Portuguese literature and the Portuguese culture to foreigners. I fell in love with it when I had uh, foreign students before me, then this was in France. In France, I had French people in front of me, and I had to um, speak with them about a different culture, about different authors that they didn't know, and I had to present them in a way that they would feel compelled to feel compelled to read because reading a literary text is very difficult when you are learning Portuguese as a second language or as a third language. It is very difficult. So I really had to create motivation, to create all sorts of strategies, and and I discovered that that's when I had to do that, that's when the sparkle came alive. That's when I thought, oh, this is something that really excites me.
Yes.
I,
That's
I like doing this. I like presenting new names, names of names of authors and texts that they wrote that are very meaningful for me, in my life. And I've been doing that since then.
right.
For
Right.
instance, during the pandemics, not so while ago, I was in Argentina, and it was in Argentina where I had another, I don't know. I was in Argentina when the pandemic struck, and you know in Argentina, the COVID was very harsh because we were told to stay at home and we couldn't get out on the streets. It
Right.
was very, very harsh. It was like that for 9 months. So, and I was completely alone. I don't travel with my family. I don't have um, a spouse. I don't have kids, so I travel alone. So over sudden, so I when I do this, I want to be in touch with people. That's my that's what I'm there.
Right. Right.
It's to be in touch with people. And the COVID destroyed completely that. Um, and so I was alone in a small apartment in Buenos Aires. I couldn't get out just to buy some groceries, and that was it. So I had to reinvent what I did. And so that's when I decided to create book clubs online, you know.
Yes, sir.
And so I Portuguese book clubs, and this was huge in Argentina. This was a really something that grew so fast. Over suddenly, I was speaking with people that were so many miles away, that were almost in the South Pole, and they
Right.
were there reading a Portuguese book. It was really amazing.
Right.
And so these book clubs that I started in Argentina online, of course, they were really uh, it was really something that how can I say this? What I work with culture. All my life, I've been working with culture, and I think one of the one of the main objectives of people working with culture is to uh, make people think,
Right.
and by making people think, to change their lives. I don't know if it is for the better or for the worse, but it eventually changes people's life, you know. And when I was there in the pandemics in Buenos Aires, I was alone, and I noticed that there was a lot of people also alone in Argentina. And with the Zoom, with this application
Yes.
that came to be, we managed to be together, you know, to create a sense of community surrounding books,
Right.
you
Right.
know. And this was really meaningful for me. Once again, it was a discovery. I discovered that with books people get together, you know. It's possible to gather around books and
Correct.
talk about books and talk about stories and talk about characters, and to escape somehow. We need to escape sometimes, and I needed to
Right.
escape the pandemics, and I needed
Correct.
to escape my apartment being in closure. You know, it's so
That is
it was
something
very,
which, right. Right. Interesting.
and
Interesting.
I managed to reach so many people. You know, that there were more than 100 online at the same time discussing. It was crazy at times, but it was very, very nice.
Nice. That's nicer. All right. Okay. Portugal has such a rich history of connection with India. How do you think young Indians can engage with this shared past to create a stronger future partnership?
Yes, yes. Portugal has a very ancient relation with India. I can tell you, and that is both ways. You know, it's not just Indian youth that can connect with the Portugal culture. It
Hmm.
is also the Portuguese youth that, for instance, I can tell you, I'm not that young anymore, but when I was young, I can tell you that throughout my scholarly years, ever since my first years in school until high school and then university, I always had friends that were from India. You know, so in Lisbon there is a presence of Indians that is very ancient.
Right.
You know, very it is very it is something that exists there. So when I was in India, when I arrived here in Delhi, when I arrived here, it is true that it was my first time in India. You know, it was my first time knowing what Delhi was and so on,
Yeah.
and the rest of India, what was going on here in this country that has so many different realities. It was my first time here, but somehow it wasn't completely new because of those friends I had. You know, I was in touch with with Indians with Indian families for so long. You know, so of course that's something unique. That's something unique. The countries are somehow um, they are somehow profoundly connected to one another. You know.
Okay.
So in India, the Indian youth can realize this by going to Goa, for instance, and seeing all the monuments that are from a different kind of architecture,
Right.
and it's a Portuguese architecture that you can still find there, and you can also find families that speak Portuguese and that live their lives in Portuguese in these areas of India, you know. So, of course, there is a presence of Portuguese culture here, and this is very strong. But the India is so big, you know. It's something that is still that we still have to promote a lot, so that people know where to find Portugal in India, where to find Portuguese culture in India, you know, and Portuguese music as well. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do here, and
Okay.
that's one of the things that any Portuguese cultural center in India should do, you know, is trying to build bridges and to show what exists already and what doesn't exist and should be here. You know, that's the thing.
All right. Okay. Why do you think that it's important for the Indian students to learn Portuguese in today's globalized world?
Well, the Portuguese language is an asset, a very important asset for anyone. Because not because it is the most beautiful language in the world, which I think it is, you
It
know.
is, it is, it is. I believe. I do believe.
Not just because of that, but because it's the fifth more the fifth more spoken the fifth um, language in the world in terms of speakers. You know, it's the fifth most spoken. That's the it's the fifth most spoken language in the world,
Yeah.
and the most spoken of them all in the South Hemisphere. You know,
Right.
so the Portuguese language is spoken in Europe, in Portugal, of course. Some say that also in Galicia. So but it's close enough to Portugal, but and it's not completely uh, unanimous that it is still spoken in Galicia, but let's say that it is. So it is Portugal and Galicia in Europe. And then we have Brazil, of course. We have the islands of
Okay.
Cabo Verde, Santo Tomé e Príncipe, where the Portuguese is also an official language. We have Guinea, uh, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau. We have Equatorial Guinea, also where Portuguese is an official language. We have Mozambique, we have Angola, and we have East Timor. Just to speak of countries, you know, I'm only speaking of countries. So you can see that it is a very spread language. In all of these places, the
Right.
Portuguese is the official language. So if you are thinking of traveling to any of these countries, you need you should you should learn the language.
Right. Right.
It would be you will have advantages in doing
Right.
so. But and if you are not traveling to these countries, but you are traveling to countries that are somehow very connected to any of these countries, for instance, any country in Europe, or any country in South America, or any country in Africa.
Right.
In all of these countries, it is very important to know Portuguese, because Portuguese is a language that they use to 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 make new to make settlements, to discuss things. The Portuguese is a working languages in all of these areas. So
Right.
of course it is the Indian students have all the advantages in the world to learn Portuguese, not just because the Portuguese language is already spoken in this country, but because of international relations all over the place with all of these continents. I'm speaking of Europe, Africa, America. You see, it's all over the place. So of course there is. It's very important to do so.
Interesting. That's something I also recommend and encourage students to learn languages, because as this is
Mhm.
very different, and each and every one person should also, have some capability and skills to learn language, that actually lesser than their problems when they go in such countries and faces such kind of challenges. I think
Yeah.
Portuguese,
But there is also, this is a very practical reason for it, of course, a very practical.
yes,
It is useful. Some, let's say like this, like, it is useful to learn Portuguese in the modern world.
right,
Of course it is. But there is also another issue that usually is in the modern societies. It is kept as a as if it wasn't as important. There is
yes,
also an aesthetic kind of uh, there is also an aesthetic reason. You know, the Portuguese is a very melodic kind of language. It is very beautiful, I must say.
yes,
The if we go back into the history of the Latin languages, the Portuguese language was born at the same time as the poetry that as the poetry that was being produced in this area of Europe, you know? So it is very poetic. Some of the differences of this language
hmm,
when we are comparing the ancient Galician Portuguese with the Latin language, that is the mother language,
right,
the solutions that this language encountered are most of all poetic and musical, you know?
right, right,
Because a lot, because this poetry was written to be sung. So this attention to the sound and this attention to the rhythm and this attention to the poetic
hmm,
is there since the beginning. And
right.
this makes a very beautiful language, I must say. It is a very beautiful language.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
so, and nowadays you have it in, you still have some, you still have some great music being produced in Portuguese. In Brazil, for instance, in Portugal, in Cabo Verde, for instance, you have a son, uh, um, a new language that was constructed there, a Creole, that is related to the Portuguese, but it is not the Portuguese. You know, it's a
yes,
different language. But that language that came out of the Portuguese uh, uh, and came out of the Portuguese and from a group of language from Africa. This language that was constructed is also musical. And so the music is very important there in
hmm,
Cabo Verde, in the Creole of Cabo Verde, in Santo Tomé e Príncipe, in the Creole of Santo Tomé and Príncipe, in Guinea, in the Creole of Guinea. So in all of these countries, the music is very important.
right,
And I think the music is very important because it is in the language. The language was already musical, you
right,
see? So there is also this aesthetic. You will find it if you get to learn the Portuguese language, you will find it very beautiful, very musical, very enchanting, even, you know?
yes, it is nice. I like. Okay. So, what challenges and opportunities do you see when promoting the Portuguese language in India?
Okay. What I look for while promoting the Portuguese language and culture here is to help building new bridges between the countries, between Portugal and India. We have a very ancient bridge already in place, a bridge that has more than 500 years, and that is nice. It's very nice to have this already common history. But we should look for the future, you know, and we should keep our friendship very close.
Right.
That's what you should do, and so I'm here helping build new bridges with India between Portugal and India.
Yes.
This year, I haven't told you this yet, But this year we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between India and Portugal. So as you can
Amazing.
see, it is true that our our relations started uh, 500 years ago when the navigators got here and whatnot. But that relation was not it was not friendly all the time. And
Right.
actually, it was stopped during our dictate. We had a very long dictatorship during the 20th century, a dictatorship that lasted almost 50 years in Portugal. It was very bad. You know, it had a huge impact in our history of the 20th century for sure, in the worst way possible. And our dictator called Salazar, he ended all diplomatic relations with India, you know,
Okay.
and they were established again after the end of the dictatorship when we had a democratic revolution in Portugal. It was a very beautiful moment in the history of my country. It is the most that revolution is very romantic even, you know. It is a revolution that bears the name of a flower. It's a carnation revolution, and it's called carnation revolution because it was peaceful.
Hmm.
Imagine, imagine a country that was fed up with the dictator and the dictatorship. After 50 years of being there, you know, with censorship, with the torture, with the imprisonment of people for 50 years. After that, my country was capable of making a coup d'etat revolution that was peaceful. You know, it was a military operation, of course, where
Yes.
soldiers went to the streets of Lisbon. But the soldiers were there; they were occupying some important targets in Lisbon, of course. But while they were occupying, they were trying to say to the people that this was peaceful. And on the streets of Lisbon in the 25th of April 1974, this is a very important date in our history. In that day when the military operations were going around in the capital of Portugal, people were scared and they were told to be at home because things could escalate very quickly. So they were told to be at home and they were at home. But of course, some people were on the streets because they were caught up while going from a place to another, you know. And one of those persons that were on the streets was a lady that was selling flowers,
Yes.
and she had a bunch of carnation flowers with her, red carnations. And so when she saw when she saw the military, she was scared of them, of course, imagine. So, but even then, she decided to offer a flower to one of the soldiers, one of the carnation flowers. And the soldier accepted the flower, and he decided to put the carnation flower on the rifle. And this was a very important symbol because it's saying to the population that this rifle is not meant to be fired.
Right.
You know, it is not
Right.
meant to kill. This is a peaceful movement, you know? And so this happened after 50 years of dictatorship, you know? So this is one of the moments that I am most proud of in our long history, you know. And it was after this revolution that Portugal started building new bridges with countries like India. So in 1975, some months later, Portugal decided to send a diplomat back to India, and to reestablish connections with India, and we are celebrating this year. This year we are celebrating this reconnection. Okay, so it is a very important, a very meaningful year
Interesting. Yeah. Very
for this.
insightful. Nice. Okay. Many young people today aspire to work in international diplomacy or cultural institutions. What advice would you give them?
Um, I would I I would advise them to be I would advise them to expect surprises, and to count with surprises. That's very important, because we are planning things, we are planning cultural events and cultural activities all the time. But it is important to keep the plan, but also keep a margin to new stuff that might appear. It's very
Correct.
important to look sides. I think I advise me to not to look forward, but to keep an eye to both sides to see what
Okay.
happens, and if and to see if there's there more than what was planned before. You know.
All right.
I don't
Portugal
know if
is known for, sorry?
I don't know
Yeah.
if you understood what I was trying to say, but
No,
that's
completely. Yeah, I just got it. Portugal is known for its literature, music, and art. Which cultural elements do you personally enjoy the most, and how do you bring them into your work here in India?
yes. Well, I can tell you what it is expected this year, what we are doing this year. This is a we are celebrating this anniversary that is very
Yeah.
important with India. So there's a special program for that. And we already, for instance, and there is the World Portuguese Language Day. It was in the 5th of May, and in that day, that is a very important day for us, of course.
Yes.
We decided to get together with the other countries that also have the Portuguese as an official language.
Okay.
The other countries that are already here in terms of diplomacy, like Angola, Mozambique, um, Timor, East Timor. Now there's an embassy of East Timor here in Delhi. So we got together with these countries, with the ambassadors, with the embassies, with the honorary consulates of Cabo Verde, Santo Tomé e Príncipe, and so on. We got all together to come up with a program of um, Portuguese speaking cinema, you know. And so there was a big program this year in the IIC, the Indian International Center, and it was a 2 day program with new films, with new movies. Portugal, Brazil, also Brazil, of course. I was just speaking of Africa and Asia, but of course Brazil. With the Portuguese cinema, Brazilian cinema, um, cinema from São Tomé also, or on São Tomé, about São Tomé. And so it was very interesting. It was and very unique. And very recent. Most of the films didn't premiere in India before that day. So most of them were shown for the first time. And since cinema is one of my academic fields, I was there to talk to people, to talk uh, about the movies they were watching. I was there in the beginning presenting the movies, and I was there after the movie for a kind of a Q&A, to answer questions and to talk with the people, because that's what I'm more interested, to see what people think. That's always what I. So this was a very important project. It's something that is still um, that will continue next year, in the 5th of May, with cinema. And we also have literary events with the other European countries, for instance. In a couple of months, we will be having the Long Nights of Literature with Unique, with a group of national institutes for culture, And so we will be having a group of writers from Europe, and a Portuguese writer will come, and they will travel to Kolkata. They will be in Delhi. They will. Some of them will also go to Varanasi. So we will be traveling around India and meeting people and talking about their writings, firsthand. And this is also a very interesting project that we have here, and that will continue. Of course, I think next year it will continue, perhaps going to other uh, other places in India as well. In literature, we are doing that, and of course, we have book clubs here, and we participated last year in the Bookaroo, the the festival for children's books. We participated that in sundry in 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 Delhi. We participated in that. And this year we are seeing if it is possible. We are not able to announce it, yes, yet, but we are still working on it. We are not saying that we will participate this year, but we are not saying otherwise either. It's something it's undecided. But that's that, and of course, working with the exhibitions. We will be having an exhibition on Portuguese architecture and Indian architecture, and that will be in October, so it's almost there. And it will be in Habitat Center. It will be inaugurated in the 16th of October in Habitat Center, and that is very exciting. And it's also there to celebrate this anniversary that I was speaking of. There will be a huge concert towards the end of the year, also in Habitat Center. I think it will be in December. And that's it. That's the fields. As you can see, our activities belong to different disciplines. They are from different areas. Some of are in literature, some of them are in cinema, others are in music, others are in architecture. We must be all over the place, and so we try to bring that variety, because that way we can reach different people, of course. And and that's what I want to do, is to reach as many people from different backgrounds, as many people as I can.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. Quite insightful, very insightful. Okay. So, do you have a favorite Portuguese book, poem, or authors you recommend to India youth who are curious about your culture?
Um, yes, so many. I have many, many authors that I would
Okay.
recommend. It has to do with your interests, your personal interests. You should follow your own guts. You should tell me what kind of books do you like to read before I recommend an author. If But this year we are especially working on two authors. We already had a book club on one of them. and this author was José Cardoso Pires, and this author wrote a book that was translated into English called a ballad of the ballad of the dog's speech. So it's a mystery book where a dead body is found on a beach. It's based on a true story. During our dictatorship, this really happened. There was a real dead person that was found on a beach one day in Portugal. And so this is based on those true facts, but it is a fiction. The names are different, the characters are different. And what drove the characters is also an imitation of an author. It's also fictional in that sense. And so we read that book here in our book club in May. No, in April. I'm sorry. We read it with a group of students, and it was very nice. Students enjoyed it a lot. And so this author could be, I think it's an author I would recommend. And another author, and so we read this book because the author this year is also his 100th anniversary,
Okay.
and so that was a way to celebrate this very important author that we had. And there's another author that we are still thinking of celebrate until the end of this year. That is called Camilo Castelo Branco. It's a more ancient author. We are this year celebrating the anniversary, the second 100th anniversary of this author, this Portuguese author. And so we are going to read one of his most important novels called Amor de Perdição. In English, it is translated into English, but it is called Doomed Love, Doomed Love. And so it's a romantic book in terms of it is an example of romanticism in that sense, but it's also a love story, and it is very important to know that the author is also there somehow, because this was written when the author was in jail. He was in jail in the 19th century, and when he was in jail, he discovered the archive of the people that were there for before him, and he went through that archive, and he found some documents of a relative of his, that was in that same jail some years before, you know. And so he decided to write his novel about that relative, that he never knew, but he had the documents there. And so that's the book that we will be reading in another book club if I'm able to do it. I'm not sure if I'm able to do it, but I would love to. So I would recommend this year, I would recommend those two authors, José Cardoso Pires and Camilo Castelo Branco. They are really amazing, both of them.
Definitely, I would love to read and also recommend the people to go and have a look on that. That I love
And
reading.
they are both translated into English, so it is
That is much
available.
more convenient for us also to get the things.
Yes.
But definitely, one thing to very sure that after having conversation with you, I'm very much sure that I just want to have I just want to learn now Portuguese with you. So
That's
I'm
good.
happy
Good
with
to
it.
know. That's good to know. I hope you do. I hope you do. We have classes here in the cultural center, and in here in Delhi, we have Portuguese classes in Delhi University, of course, in Jamia University as well, and in the Camões Portuguese Cultural Center. So you can choose where do you want to learn Portuguese.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I would. Okay. So lastly, last questions of the podcast, sir. If you could describe the Portugal-India relationship in one word or phrase, what would be and why?
Let me think. I think it would be brotherly love, because
Yeah.
when you think of two brothers, of course, there is love between two brothers, but the
Yes.
relation is not always an easy one. We fight a lot. We discuss with one another. We debate things. We are not always. We do not agree in everything for sure, but still the love is stronger. The bond of love is stronger than that. And I think it would be my word would brotherly love.
Amazing. Well, that's very nice, interesting. Okay, so now we are being